It's Wednesday, which means it's time for a favorite find. Man, I look rough. Long week to only be Wednesday. Anyway, this week's, also check us out. We got the Princess Donut shirt. If you're not familiar with Dungeon Crawler Carl, I recommend it. You should read a book. If you don't read, because you can't or otherwise, no shame. There's plenty of people out there that can't read. I know because I interact with them every day. Okay? Now, I don't know for certain they can't read, but I have my doubts. One of the few book series I would actually recommend for audiobook, narrated by a guy named Jeff Hayes. He does a great job. So if you got Audible, I would highly recommend the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinneman. That's this is not like a book of the month club here. Maybe it should be. Get that Treasure's recommended book reading for this month and probably the next several months. Dungeon Crawler Carl. Anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, it's favorite find time. And this week's favorite find comes from Brian. And it's really cool to me. So in metal detecting, one of the things you're going to find occasionally is a token. And there's all kinds of different tokens. And each token is its own little rabbit hole of knowledge and history. And this one is no exception. So check it out. It's a 30 years of progress token from Ford. So from 1903 to 1933. Now that's kind of crazy to think, right? Like, we're 30 years into this thing, and they made these tokens. Originally, they gave them out at a little exposition they had in Detroit, but the Chicago World's Fair happened, and they built a huge building and display. So huge, in fact, that the Ford display was 11 acres. Okay, so they had this big building. Henry Ford had 60 of his own personal collected vehicles inside this building. Also, he came to the thing. Henry came with his son, Etzel, and what a terrible name. That's neither here nor there. My boy, Etzel. Anyway, here's a picture of them attending the event. One of the things that was very interesting about this event was the theme was "Out of the Earth Comes Ford," and they had this like revolving display. And on the display, at the top of it was like a Model T or something, and it was like, there were sections around it, like copper, zinc, and basically it talked about like all the elements that went in the production. Cotton for the interior, just tons of stuff, right? And it's an early example of like, basically, stating like all the elements of this vehicle came from the earth, right? So in some type of way, it's a natural creation. Now, what a lot of people don't think about these days is that there were a lot of people in the early days of automobiles who had horses and carriages. And they were like, automobiles, these machines, they're an unnatural thing. They shouldn't exist, right? Like, we should be using what has been given to us, right? And this still happens to this day. There's like an undercurrent that fights against progression of, sometimes industrial things, sometimes medicine, because they believe that like we should just, I guess, use what's available. But more often than not, this progress, it always comes from a natural thing. Another way to look at this is like, people will be like, look at all these crazy ingredients, and they'll be looking at these Latin names, chemicals and stuff. Everything is a chemical. Remember that, okay? So don't get thrown off by one's inability to understand something, okay? More often than not, there's wisdom in accepting that you don't know and seeking to learn, okay? You can't close yourself off to the darkness of progression. All right, remember that, because I think sometimes it's easy, and I think that idea gets intertwined with nostalgia as well, and sometimes both can be dangerous. I don't know if you were a fan of The Sopranos. If you weren't, what even kind of person are you? But anyway, if you weren't, whatever. There's a line in there that I like. Tony Soprano gets wrapped up in it too. And that is, remember when is the lowest form of conversation. Which is ironic, because here I am talking about the 1933 Chicago World's Fair and this token that was sent in to me by Brian, who found it in San Pedro in a park, a 1920s park. 700,000 of these tokens were made. So that means that your chance of finding one's still pretty good. I don't know how I struggle with the idea of like really enjoying history, but having to separate myself from the fact that like you can get caught up in the nostalgia of history. And sometimes the nostalgia is not the reality. Remember that too. It's one thing to understand the past, and it's another to romanticize a past that never existed. I feel sometimes in our society we get caught up in that idea too. Let me know about that. Sometimes memories of your own past, they seem a lot rosier than the reality. I don't know where I'm going with this, but whatever it is, it's in my soul. So know that. And it's definitely, maybe I should start a whole other channel about this, where we just talk about this particular subject, because it is a deep one for me. I think it's part of just being human. And I think for some of us it's strong, and that's why this hobby becomes so addictive. You start uncovering these pieces from the past. You want to know about the history of these items. There is a type of, I don't want to say spiritual connection, but, and I don't want to say like a paranormal connection, but you're following in the footsteps of ghosts, okay? And that's sort of one way to think about it. And when you handle these objects that have been in the ground for so long, you can't help but be overtaken by the mystery of how was it lost, who owned it, what was it? I mean, for me in the beginning, it was about like particular treasure. I wanted gold, I wanted silver, but then these different relics popped out, these different things that were trash, but also they were common trash, but they were trash that isn't common anymore. So what were they about? Clearly tokens are not trash. They're definitely special. They're ex-numista, I guess. Ex-numismatic, I believe is the term. Which just means they're not coins. So if you see a token, it's not a coin, but they sure do hold some kind of like special thing, right? Because as where coins are made for years and years and years, tokens are usually a brief window into just a small period of time, like this one, which was given out at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. Also, I love World's Fairs. Why don't we have those anymore? I personally think that like America needs a new World's Fair. If you're behind that idea, let me know in the comments. How do we get a new World's Fair going on? I feel like we need it. And why did they stop? See, now I'm developing questions that I need to go answer personally so I can cope with my present existence. Anyway, if anyone else here is psychologically challenged by nostalgia, which I think really fuels a lot of this hobby, let me know in the comments. And how do you deal with it? Because ultimately, all we have is right now. And if we're lucky, we'll have tomorrow. So remember that. That sounded like a boat. I am not near the water. Well, I really appreciate Brian for sending in this token because I love them. I love these favorite finds you guys send me. And now I got to find one. And because I know how many of these were produced, I got a shot. So I feel good about that. And you should feel good about it too. If you found one, let me know. Also, if you'd like stickers or any other swag I may have at the time, or have a favorite find you'd like to submit, email me at igetthattreasure@gmail.com. I'll send you out stickers or whatever swag I have free of charge, as always. Also, I got some new stickers. So if you just want to freshen up, get some new stuff, let me know. I'll see you Friday with a walk and talk. And I'm going to have to make some kind of changes here soon, but we'll get to that. If you get out, I hope you get that treasure. And thank you so much for watching.